children sitting on the floor to learn. The teacher is exhausted and fatigued from straining their voices and trying to deploy all efforts to control the large number of pupils and students. Nigeria's education sector faces a daunting challenge caused by a severe shortage of teachers, particularly in the Federal Capital Territory. To meet the global standard of a 1.40 teacher-pupil ratio, Nigeria needs an additional 263,000 teachers, according to UNESCO reports. Currently, the FCT has only 2,104 teachers, but requires 4,152 to meet the recommended ratio, resulting in a shortage of 2,048 teachers.
The problem of teacher deficit is a national problem in Nigeria. If you look at what the national policy on education states, the national policy on education actually recommends, an average of 1 to 25 teachers for 3 primary school classes, and 1 to 35 one teacher to 35 pupils for primary school, and for secondary school it recommends 1 teacher to 40 pupils. But data from even the universal basic education indicates that in certain parts of the country, especially in the rural areas, you have as much as 80 pupils to 1 teacher. In fact, in some parts of the country, some schools don't even have teachers at all. I was in Imo State over the weekend, and I was in one of the rural communities, and the communities that we're interacting with were complaining that in some of their schools there's only 1 teacher, and that teacher is just the head teacher, and that in some they are lucky to have about 2 or 3 teachers. You're talking about rural communities where majority of the kids actually go to the public schools, and even in some of them where they are private schools, many of the citizens, many of the residents cannot even afford the cost of private schools, which means that in most of those rural communities, the kids either are not going to school or just going to school just a while away their time without learning anything. And that's the danger we are facing. So what is happening in the FCT is just symptomatic of the crisis of teaching staff in public schools. So it is a major crisis for us as a nation, and I think this too indirectly contributes to out-of-school children.
The implications of these shortages are seen in the overcrowded classrooms and inadequate resources, hindering effective teaching and learning. The teacher-pupil ratio in FCT schools stands at 1.59, far above the recommended standard.
You don't expect one math teacher to be teaching the entire school and be efficient like another school where they have sufficient number of math teachers. So definitely you have teachers skipping classes or going to the classes very tired, trying only to just mark their attendance register, basically. So the ratio will definitely affect the quality of education. People get tired, and all of this fatigue sets in, and they devise means of lazily achieving their job and getting paid at the end of the month.
When you have about average of 1 teacher to 80, first the teacher cannot effectively teach 80 pupils at the same time, and then the pupils themselves cannot learn adequately, because what informs the UNESCO recommendation of a number of students per teacher is because the research has shown that the smaller the classes, the more effectively students can learn, and more effectively the teacher can supervise the learning of pupils. So there's a direct correlation between student performance and the size of the class. So the larger the class, the less likely that effective learning can take place and even effective teaching can take place. And then when you talk about in places where there's practically no teachers, it simply means no learning whatsoever is taking place. So there's the direct correlation between the size of the class and the effectiveness of the teaching and learning. generally across board, whether in the FCT or any of the states or any of the 36 states of the Federation, education has suffered massively from the current crop of people who call our leaders. And it will fall. Why won't it fall? Their kids don't go to those schools. You find people who before they get into public office, their kids were in public schools. Immediately they get into public office, their kids are either taken abroad or put in supersonic private schools. So they therefore don't feel what the child of the ordinary man feels. So across board, the standards are falling in terms of infrastructure, laboratories, libraries, access to even what I can call an ICT. Because right now in serious parts of the world, children get exposed to ICT from the primary school age. So those things are simply not there. And they are not there because those who should ensure they are there, those who should ensure that they are there, their kids are not in those schools, and as a result, they don't care. That's just the situation right now.
Statistics indicate the teachers required are 4,152. Current teachers, 2,104. Shortage, 2,048. Students, primary school, 57% of teachers lack required qualifications. Secondary school, 27% of teachers are unqualified. The budgetary allocation of the FCT education breaks down as follows: 12% for teacher training and development. National budget for education, 5.4%. UNESCO's recommendation stands at 15 to 20%. Economic impact. Estimated annual cost of teacher shortage is at 1.4 trillion. The shortage not only affects students but also severe economic and national security consequences. Uneducated youth are more vulnerable to radicalization and extremism, and experts warn that Nigeria's failure to address the teacher shortage will have long-term consequences.
First, the impact on the economy will be through the quality of education, which invariably is the source of human capacity for the economic activities within the country. When you have shortage of teachers, you have one teacher trying to do so many things at a time, and then is unable to do them effectively. And what you then have, you have what we call in our local parlance half-baked education. People who went to school but are unable to actually demonstrate the capacity that the school was supposed to bestow on them. And so you have people in the labor market who are actually unemployable, who cannot adapt to today's labor market, the demand of today's labor market. And of course, the culminating effect of such thing is a dwindling economy, an economy that cannot rely on itself, that is not self-sustainable, an economy that cannot innovate. So of course, it will definitely have a significant adverse effect on the economy.
It's only a properly trained and educated workforce that can turn around to become engine of economic growth, economic transformation, and ultimately development. So when people are not equipped with basic skills, basic education, they become a problem economy. Rather than become agents of growth, agents of transformation, and agents of development, they become a major they become a major burden to the economy. Because we are talking about the current economy in the world, global economies, is knowledge driven. So no matter the resources you have as a nation, if you have people with requisite knowledge to run the economy cannot attain its best possible potential. Yes. So with unelected, untrained, and a nation cannot grow, cannot transform itself, neither can it develop. Let us look at what is happening largely in the northern part of the country. From Boko Haram to insurgency to kidnapping, just name it. All this is because you have a large pool of out-of-school children who have no future whatsoever, who have nothing to live for. I mean, who are easily available to be recruited, to be manipulated, to be miseducated, and to be misinformed. Because when a man who has something to live for will definitely not go and tie a, what is it called, a suicide bomb in the name of religion or in the name of going somewhere where he can get 7 virgins. No. So there's a direct correlation too between, I mean, the level of education or provision of education, I mean, in a community, and the level of criminality and crimes, as well as insecurity. Those and someone who is not educated can easily be manipulated by people who have ulterior motives, or people who have agenda. I mean, agenda that is not in the best interest of the community. So the lack of education, the lack of the preponderance of out-of-school children provides a ready pool of people who can be recruited, who can be manipulated, and then used, to disturb and destabilize the peace and the tranquility of any society. And that's what part of the problem we have in Nigeria with regards to insecurity. There is a large pool of people who are not educated, and therefore they can be easily manipulated and recruited with promises, and then they will become agents of insecurity and instability.
From inside closed doors of schools administrations to the workings of education policies, the tasks of teachers, students and pupils, Leaves and Worms on AD4 TV radio tracks the critical issues in public education within Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. Leaves and Worms brings you authoritative investigative insights into state of public schools in the FCT, reporting it as it is, factual, detailed and resourceful. Watch Leaves and Worms on AD4 TV radio. AD4 TV radio, reliable and credible.
We love AD4 TV radio.
To address these crises, the FCT authorities must prioritize teacher recruitment, training and retention, along with increased funding and improved working conditions. The Nigerian government must recognize the gravity of this crisis and take decisive action to revitalize education, experts say.
I have always advocated that the federal government of Nigeria, in collaboration with the other tiers of the government, the state government and the local government. I understand from the current arrangements, whereas the federal government is responsible for the overall policy of education and framework of education in Nigeria, they are only focused on developing some special tertiary institutions with a few unity schools. The state government are responsible for both primary and secondary education, with the primary almost always relinquished to the local governments. But as you would know already, the local government has been bastardized over the years by government. Only recently we are having the local government autonomy bill and all of that. So at the end of the day, we haven't seen a comprehensive strategy towards improving the overall quality of education in the country. This is what I expect that the government of the day should work on. If I even look at our curriculum, it is outdated. It no longer suits the current labor market. So we should evaluate our current labor market. What are the challenges of the nation? In our policy on education, we say the purpose of education is to empower the individuals, to make them self-reliant, and so that they can contribute to the society in which they live. The kind of education we get through the archaic curriculum that we run today, how does it empower us to contribute to the society today? So we need to even raise a new curriculum. Then based on the curriculum, we can now raise a system of education that can deliver that curriculum effectively and efficiently. I haven't seen that from any government, and I think that is the best direction to go. Government should put experts together to brainstorm and give us a new curriculum, give us a new direction of education for the next 50 years, next 100 years, next 40 years, and then we begin to come up with strategies on how to do this.
Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, faces a dire crisis in its education sector. The shortage of teachers is staggering, with devastating consequences for the nation's future. According to UNESCO, Nigeria needs 263,000 additional teachers to meet the global standard of 1 to 40 teacher-pupil ratio. Currently, the country has only 73% of the required teachers, leaving millions of students without adequate guidance. In primary schools, the situation is critical. A 2022 report by the National Bureau of Statistics reveals that 57% of primary school teachers lack the required qualifications. These inadequacies hamper students' foundational learning. The federal government's allocation to education in the 2022 budget has a meager 5.4%, far below UNESCO's recommendation of 15 to 20%. This underfunding perpetuates the teacher shortage. In some states, the situation is even more alarming. For instance, in Borno State, 70% of primary school teachers are said to be unqualified. The Northeast region, ravaged by insurgency, suffers the most. Nigeria's teacher shortage affects not only students but also the economy. A study by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group estimated that the shortage cost Nigeria approximately 1.4 trillion annually. Despite these alarming figures, the government's response remains inadequate. The 2022 Teacher Development Policy aims to train 1 million teachers by 2025, but implementation has been slow.
Education is not a process of getting a meal ticket in the name of certificates, so that I can get one job. No, education is at the very epicenter of development of society, and any society that does not take education seriously the way it ought to prioritize, that society is heading for doom. We need to come together. First, government must understand the importance of education. Secondly, as stakeholders, as citizens, we must bring to bear the necessary pressure on the government to provide the resources that is needed. Government is number one provider that takes the lead in educating citizens. You don't outsource it to private hawks. No, tell me, is it the US, is it in Europe, is it in the UK, where they outsource that particular important duty of government to educate its citizens?
Experts warn that Nigeria's failure to address the teacher shortage will have long-term consequences. The shortage disproportionately affects disadvantaged regions. Rural areas, already plagued by poverty and limited resources, struggle to attract and retain qualified teachers. To address the crisis, the government must prioritize teacher recruitment, training, and retention.
Every time you hear teachers are going for one kind of training or the other. But you see, it is not how fast you run, but it is the direction in which you are running. If your destination is in the east and you are running very fast to the west, you will arrive on time, but you will arrive at the wrong destination. Upon what are we basing our training? When the curriculum itself is out of sync with our society. We can't be doing trainings that are not based on the right curriculum. So I think we should first of all fix the curriculum. We should first of all fix the new objective of education in our country. Then we train our teachers based on that new curriculum, new objective, and new methodology. Otherwise, any training we do will just be volume, but there will be no quality.
There is inadequate number of teachers. One. Number two, you have the other aspect of it, which is teachers that are improperly trained. I mean, there are a lot of people who get into the teaching profession because there's a deficit of properly trained teachers. We don't have enough of them. Those who have been properly trained, And secondly, we have unemployment. So for those who could not find employment elsewhere, despite the fact they are now trained to be teachers, easily just, gravitate towards the teaching profession to make ends meet. So, but if we had enough teachers, there would have been no properly trained teachers. There would have been no room for them, because those who will recruit would have been insisting on minimum training and qualification. But because already we don't have enough, so those who are not properly trained get into the teaching profession and therefore cannot deliver, the way a properly trained teacher would deliver. So those are the two aspects of it. First, inadequate number of properly trained teachers, which has created a gap and which has necessitated the lowering of standard by the recruitment of teachers by people who are not trained to be teachers. So the only way to address it first is to first encourage people to take to teaching profession. Two, make the profession lucrative enough for people to want to stay, because even among those who are trained to be teachers, how many of them really want to take to that profession because of the poor remuneration and poor welfare in that sector? So we need to first encourage people, and then to want to embrace that profession, and then make being a teacher worthwhile. In the past, teachers were one of the most regarded in the Nigerian society. Right now, the teachers are, in fact, they are looked down with scorn because of the fact that no effort has been made to look at their remuneration as well as their welfare.
As Nigerian youth await their future, they wonder if the government will heed the call to revitalize education. Will Nigeria's education sector continue to deteriorate, or will decisive actions be taken to address the teacher shortage?
First, we need to prioritize education in general, because it is lack of priority, because of the lack of priority because of the fact that we have not prioritized education, we have not given priority to education. That is why we find ourselves in a situation where teachers, we are not encouraging people to take to the teaching profession, and that's the same reason why we are not ensuring that teachers are adequately remunerated and their welfare taken care of. So we need to prioritize education, one. Number two, the government need to consciously encourage young people to take to the teaching profession. We need to provide incentives for people to want to read education and become teachers. Three, we need to take measures to ensure that even those who read education are encouraged to stay in that sector. So we must find a means to encourage people to stay in that in the teaching profession. We must take measures to ensure that even those who are there, they are retained. And one way to do that is to pay adequate attention to their remuneration as well as their welfare. These are critical steps the government need to take so as to for us to be able to bridge the gap in number in the teacher-student ratio, as well as to bridge, as well as to revamp our education sector in general.
The fate of Nigeria's future generations depends on urgent action. The government must recognize the gravity of this crisis and take decisive steps to address the teacher shortage.